Okay. Do we have any public comments?
No comments. Is it echoing in here? Is it?
It's just you.
Is it? I thought it was me. I'm hearing voices.
Okay. Bart, you are up.
I think we've got a superintendent. Oh, yeah. There you go. Yeah, I think we have a superintendent spotlight video that we're going to pull up and share with you. We actually have, I think, 2 videos to share. I think one of the videos will be later on.
I'm a junior at Epic Charter Schools.
Oh, is that, huh?
I do gymnastics. I'm a level 10 at Dynamo, and I've been doing it since Mommy and Me classes.
She was having a lot of fun and just learning things super quick. And a lot of people just kept telling me she has something special. She's really talented, and it came easy for her.
I joined Epic for the flexibility of my hours in gymnastics. I practice from 9 to 1:30, and then I have a 2-hour break, which I do school in between, and then I go back to practice for 2 more hours. It made it a lot easier because I can get the training that I need.
I just honestly can't believe it's come to this point already that she's being recruited and looking for her college, and going on all the recruiting trips was so cool.
I went to Alabama, LSU, OU, and Utah on a visit. It was for sure. I chose Oklahoma Gymnastics because it just felt like home. Epic has allowed me to travel during school because on the road I can do my school anytime I need to.
It was a big jump for us, but it's worked out great, and Epic's been very helpful, and we've had great teachers. That's been key, I think. With Epic, we've been able to stay with the same teacher for year after year, and that has helped because they know like what she needs to be successful.
Tight knees. Up. Beautiful.
So we really owe a lot to Epic. I mean, it helped Presley achieve her goals, gave us more time as a family, and allowed us to travel. I mean, really, it just checked all the boxes, and I'm very grateful to Epic for everything that it's given her and our family.
Yeah, so, what's interesting is I hear this all the time, that one of the biggest draws to Epic Charter Schools for our families and for the students that we serve is the flexibility that she just talked about. The flexibility with that schedule is really important.
And I'm a junior at Epic Charter Schools.
That was it, huh?
I do gymnastics. I'm a level 10 at
Okay. I'm so glad that she chose OU. It's very selfish, but I'm really glad she's going to be here, and glad that we helped her get that opportunity. Okay, we are on to board committee reports, and both of our board chairs are not here to report. Brandon, can you pick up the ball there?
Yes. On the nominating committee. I spoke a couple of times with Sarah, and Deanna was there as well, and we've interviewed a number of candidates for the board, and hopefully we will speed up the process. And I'm hoping we can bring a name for the February meeting. You can tell with 3 members here today, it's getting kind of thin, but we have 5 board members, and the state charter board changed their rules, allowing charter schools to have a 5-member board, which we have. So 3 is still a quorum, so we're okay. But it would be nice if we got a few extra people on the board, and hopefully next month we can do that. Mike, did you?
Yes, I met with Janice earlier, and we discussed the budget. She went over her projections as far as the changes that were made to staffing and how that has affected the budget and where she's projecting it to go. And I think she'll elaborate more on that during the meeting. So I was very happy with everything.
Okay, thank you. And now we have consideration and possible action to approve our pathways applicants. I can report that we reviewed these applications on our subcommittee and are satisfied with them. So
Yes, and in the document provided, we have a few individuals who are highlighted, and we need to get further information. So, if you would like to make the motion to approve all of the individuals on the pathways spreadsheet, with the caveat that we will make sure those who are highlighted have the documentation in place.
so moved.
Second. Ms. Berry's absent, Ms. Casper.
Yes.
Mr. Hammond is absent, Ms. Myers. Yes. And Mr. Bella.
Yes.
Okay, we are back to our superintendent report.
Yeah, so the school year is now officially halfway over. Can you believe that? So we're already into the second semester, and so we're having conversations about prom and graduation. So excited about that. So we'll pull up our superintendent update for January 23rd, 2025. Go ahead, Jeremy. There's a look at our 5 aspirations, and one of the things that we're going to talk about today is aspiration number 1, EPIC graduates being empowered, future ready, and in demand. We have a special guest that's going to be with us presenting here today that I think you're going to find the presentation and the information that she provides, specifically the data piece, fascinating in terms of a real glimpse into EPIC Charter School. So I'm just going to tease that out. She'll be up here a little bit later. Next slide. So Bob normally handles this, but Bob is out of the country. And so he's not going to be with us today. And so I'm going to step in this month, and then I'm going to pass the baton back to Bob next month. And he'll go over these results with you. But we want to keep, continue to communicate with the board the progress that's being made academically. And we've got a lot of things going on, but obviously academics are at the heart of what we're trying to do. Progress on previous years' expectations. And you can see clearly from both December and January, since we didn't have our board meeting in December, the progress that is being made. So in the blue, you've got the goal that we have set. And for the month of January, it looks like for the month of, for January, it looks like we're almost at that goal for fiscal year 24, 25. And then we're making good progress towards the spring semester. So that is with the subject of ELA. So that's English Language Arts. But you can see sort of a 3-year snapshot from 22 to 23 to 24, and now even into 25, the progress that's being made. And what's interesting as you sort of look at how we're doing compared to the goal is look at the delta each month, and we're basically holding serve. Our students and teachers are holding serve with the gap from where we were from month to month. And so I'm encouraged by the progress that we're seeing in comparison to the goal. So in December, you can see we were, at 17%, and the goal was at 15%. So a little bit above where we were hoping to be. If that trend continues throughout the spring semester, then we should be hitting that 35% mark. And that certainly would put us in the, I would say the upper 2/3, upper half-ish, compared to the other 500 public schools in the state of Oklahoma. So our goal, obviously we want to continue to make progress academically, but clearly what we're doing here with these academic results is we're teaching standards, Oklahoma academic standards, and then we're measuring, did you master those academic standards? And so we're making progress inch by inch. So that's ELA. Let's take a look at the math. So that print is really small, and I knew it was going to be. I actually thought about writing it down just so I wouldn't have to try to squint to see it or go up there. But I believe we're slightly ahead of where we were last month. and slightly ahead of the goal. So that trend continues with math as well. And really proud of our teachers. I know we've got a lot of staff that watch these board meetings and families that watch the board meetings and students that occasionally will watch the board meetings as well. But you can see the progress that's being made. And it looks like about, the goal is about 4% per month. And it looks like we're trending, around 5% per month. And so still slightly ahead of where we wanted to be in terms of mastery. And this is in the subject of math, which, just so everybody that's watching, math is our lowest performing, which it is for most public schools in Oklahoma as well. It's our lowest performing subject. So clearly it's being emphasized with our staff and our students, and just really proud of the progress that's being made. Next slide. So here's our top performers on standards mastery. So for ELA formative mastery, Sheila Sanders, Rochelle Raymond, and then Susan Hodges. Math formative mastery, Amanda Pilgrim over at our Learning Center, Susan Hodges, and Casey Wan. So special shout out to those principals for leading the charge with regards to standards mastery. Next slide. This is important. This is our accreditation letter from the Oklahoma State Department of Education. And basically what it says is for the 24-25 school year, our accreditation status has been approved, and it is accreditation with no deficiencies. So, yeah. And I want to give a special shout out to Roger Kimball, Michael Flory, who's right over there, and his entire compliance team. They do a great job of keeping up with our accreditation standards and what's required, and there's timelines and deadlines, and making sure that those are met on a consistent basis. And because of that, we've been able to get a recommendation of accreditation with no deficiencies. And of course, Ginger, you've been with us for a while now, and so there was a day when that was not the case. And so to continue that progress, to continue to see full accreditation with no deficiencies, I think is proof that we're continuing our commitment to the State Department of Education, to our authorizers and regulators, and then also to the taxpayers of Oklahoma, that we're going to operate in full compliance. And so very proud of our accreditation status. So I just wanted to share that with you because that came to us right before the break. Next slide. Hugs Project. So our amazing students and staff teamed up with the Hugs Project again to serve gifts, letters to troops overseas. These acts of kindness remind our service members they're loved, appreciated, and never forgotten. Thank you to everyone who participated. This was run by our Family Engagement Department, and we came up with a total of 160 boxes of goodies that we were able to send to our troops overseas. And so thank you to everybody who helped participate in that project, and just continuing our commitment as part of our aspirations is, to be a conscience in our community. And we're continuing that work as well. Next slide. So here's some pictures for you all. Tulsa Mid-High, before the holiday break, they enjoyed a cookie decorating contest and also recreated pieces of famous artwork. And so you can see the Last Supper there, and some of the other pictures that they tried to reenact and capture. And that's one of the things, because we're a virtual school, people don't think much about art, in a virtual school setting, but it's really important. And you'll find, particularly at the learning centers, they do a lot of hands-on kinesthetic learning with our kids, and keeping the arts alive. And I think that gives me hope. I'm getting older, so that gives me hope that, the next generation is going to be as equipped as we possibly can make them. Next slide. How about the Heritage Academy? So a first grade Spanish class led by Mr. Valera and Ms. Aza Villegas. Students gaining essential literacy skills aligned to OASWL, Interpretive Communication Standards, empowering them to succeed in a multilingual world. And so by mastering their syllable alphabetization, decoding, and accurate pronunciation, students build confidence in their ability to read and communicate effectively in both English and Spanish. And so that, keep in mind, at the Heritage Academy, we have bilingual staff that are teaching in both English and Spanish. And what we found in research shows is that students that particularly at an early age during those formative years that are exposed to more than one language typically perform better academically as they get older. And so these kiddos right here are getting a wonderful head start. So appreciate our Heritage Academy. Epic Employee Appreciation Award Ceremony. This is something we do every December. So the Epic Employee Appreciation Award Ceremony took place on December 13th. Over 342 awards were presented, including 81 Division Departmental Choice Awards, 147 high-performing Reg Ed teachers, and 114 high-performing SPED teachers. We also recognized 9 retirees, and congratulations to all of our excellent employees. But we have a specific criteria, in order to be designated as a high-performing teacher at Epic Charter Schools. And because of that, they are allowed to expand their roster beyond what most Epic teachers are able to handle. And obviously, because we're a performance pay model, they have access to bonus potential, and then we pay by the student. And so the more students you have on your roster, the more money you can make. We have teachers, I don't know if you all know this or not, but we have teachers this year in Oklahoma, which is one of the lowest per pupil funded states in the union. We have teachers this year at Epic Charter Schools that will make 6 figures. And there's not another public school in Oklahoma that's doing that. So that allows us to do 2 things. One, it allows us to attract top talent. The second thing is it allows us to retain top talent. And so when you talk about a national teacher shortage or a statewide teacher shortage and whatnot, that is not a problem at Epic Charter Schools. And money is one of the reasons. It's not the only reason, but it's one of the reasons why we're able to attract top talent to our school. Next slide. Our Epic Leadership Academy. I don't know if you can see these admin participants. Looks like 81, and then education or educator participants 143. You can see some data there, but every year we do an Epic Leadership Academy where we help our employees to, number one, learn their voice, how they communicate, but then also how others communicate. And then we try to explain to our staff the importance of communication and how my voice may be different than Ginger's voice and vice versa. And how do we communicate effectively? Obviously, with a school of over 2,000 staff members and over 30,000 children that we're educating, communication is important, right? And so we've had, you can see there, over 200 of our employees participated in the fall 2024 program snapshot. And there's some of the ratings there on the bottom right corner. You can see an overall rating of satisfaction of 4.44 out of 5. And it's not just about learning voice. It's also about knowing yourself to lead yourself. And then what it provides for us is an opportunity when we experience growth as an organization. We've already invested in our employees and preparing them to sort of take that next step or to level up, to use the gaming term. And so it allows us to promote people from within rather than having to go outside of our organization to folks. And we do hire people from outside of the organization, but we have an intentional program here at Epic Charter Schools where we provide leadership opportunities and growth opportunities for our staff. And our goal is to get 100% of all staff to be a part of our Leadership Academy, just to begin preparing them. Because so many of our folks, you think about this, I heard a statistic by 2030, it'll be the first time America's had 4 generations in the workforce. 4 separate generations in the workforce starting in 2030. Gen A starts in 2030. So you think about the importance of not just communication, but communication with other generations. And when you see that spectrum, it's really important that we prepare that next generation, or in this case, generations, plural. So the Epic Leadership Academy allows us to do that. And so we're really proud of Nathan Mitchell runs point on that for us and does a fantastic job. Next slide. Yeah, so this individual is very special to me, and she is very special to Epic. So Epic Charter Schools Jen Lake left an unforgettable mark on the lives of countless students and families. Known for her passion and dedication, she inspired those around her with the words she signed off with every email. To the world, you may be one person, but to one person, you may be the world. And so when she faced cancer, her students and their parents honored her by tattooing her signature phrase, a testament to the lifelong difference that she made. And though Jennifer is no longer with us, her legacy continues to live in the hearts of all she touched. And so I was very privileged to get to know Jen, and everybody that had an opportunity to know her was privileged as well. One of the most selfless servants we've ever had at Epic Charter Schools, and she left quite a legacy. Next slide. Okay. Yeah, I think we're going to try to pull our communications team put together a video of remembrance of Jen Lake. We're going to try to stream it if we can get it pulled up. Okay.
Miss Lake is the reason I'm still here. She's the reason I'm alive.
She was one of the greatest supports I've ever had.
There's absolutely no one I can compare her to.
She loved my children dearly, and she was a pivotal change for success for my kids.
I'd always kind of been an outcast as a kid. I didn't really fit in.
The bullying with Clayton started by the first grade and just continued to escalate through sixth grade. I reached out to Epic, and this little angel appeared named Jennifer Lake.
And she was with me day in and day out, teaching me how to be a young man, how to be an adult, how to be studious.
And really began to see a light shine in Clayton.
Keep myself stable.
And really began to see a light shine in Clayton that we hadn't seen in a very long time. And she made learning fun. They would go places. One of the favorite things she loved to do is an outlet that wasn't enclosed in a building, because so much trauma had occurred inside of a building. And get him engaged in nature and give him an outlet that wasn't enclosed in a building. Much trauma had occurred inside of a building. So as the kids rounded out fifth grade, they all transitioned over to Epic.
I really think she made me a better person. She pushed me better in every way.
She was the definition of what it meant to invest in someone.
We were able to start that relationship with her, and we grew that relationship with her over 10 years of having the same teacher. She knew what my expectations were as a parent. She truly transitioned more like a family member.
Every single email had the signature tag.
To the world, you may be one person.
But to one person, you may be the world.
When she started to get sick, I kind of realized exactly what that quote meant. She was the world to me and to my family.
She was battling cancer.
We had Miss Lake and Mr. Lake come over for dinner, and we all kind of had our tattoos covered up. And after we ate dinner, we kind of did a big reveal and showed all of our tattoos to Miss Lake.
And she just cried. She loved it. It touched her heart to know that we were there for her.
And it meant a lot to us for her to be able to see how much she cared to us, that how amazing. I'm willing to mark my body for a lifetime for that woman, is how amazing she is.
My mom and I were able to go up and say our final goodbyes. But once she passed, it was a really, really hard time, and not being able to just go out and spend a day together with her like I used to do.
All she knew was love. She had a true desire for student success, and I have no doubt she's still watching today with my kids' success and her other former students' success.
And there's a wonderful quote: children don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And Jen Lake embodied that, and she was deeply loved at Epic, and she will be missed. So thank you, communications team, for putting that video together and remembering Jen and the role that she played in impacting lives here at Epic Charter Schools. And I think that's it. One more? Ah, yes, we actually do have one more, if you'll flip it back. National School Board Recognition Month is celebrated every January. Yeah, there it is. By school districts across the United States. It's an opportunity for local school boards and communities to honor Oklahoma's more than 2,700 elected school board members for their dedication and service to children. And we have 3 of those 2,700 with us here today. Give them a round. So we wanted to recognize you and thank you for volunteering your time and energy here to help us educate 30,000 children across the state of Oklahoma. So we salute you and we thank you for your service. That's it.
What a beautiful legacy. Thanks for sharing that with the board. I'm very impressed. And, you know, it's a little sappy, but it does come down to care, love and
Absolutely.
care, you know,
Yeah.
the dedication that allows you to give. So, okay. It is time to hear from Justin Hutt.
Okay. Well, psych, you don't get to hear from me today. But I would like to introduce a member of the instructional department and a member of this organization. First, I kind of wanted to preface maybe what we plan to do for the next 5 to 6 months, especially in terms of the instructional department. And we've made a lot of investments. You have joined us in approving a lot of investments over the last few years. And we want to start showcasing how those have come to fruition. And one of those that we're going to talk about today is our student wellness investments that we've made. So the slideshow that we're going to present is some data regarding to exactly what has happened with our students and the investment that we've made into student wellness. So I'm going to introduce Elizabeth Suddeth, who is our Managing Director of Student Wellness and Support Services.
Oh, okay. Good afternoon. Thank you so much, board, for having me here, as well as Superintendent Banfield. I am so thrilled to share with you today not only, as Justin was mentioning, the investment that you all have proved that we have made here at EPIC in regards to student mental health and wellness, but some of the data that we've seen from our first semester. We had some really exciting data come through, so I'm happy to go through that with you. Just a quick disclaimer, if I'm out of breath, I'm okay. Everyone tends to stop and ask me. I promise I'm okay. Okay, so as Justin mentioned, my name is Elizabeth Suddeth. I'm the Managing Director of Student Wellness and Support Services. And so the first thing I want to do is introduce to you a little bit about our team. What have we done? What have we formed here? What is the composition of this comprehensive team that we have built? So we know our educational mission here at EPIC is do I can't see? That's okay. There. Okay. Okay. So, of course, we know at EPIC, our educational mission here is to advance academics and have future-ready graduates that are prepared for life post-secondary beyond their time here at EPIC. But we also know that there are a lot of non-academic barriers that can prevent that from happening. So when we thought about putting this team together, we were very intentional about what are those non-academic barriers that EPIC students and families are dealing with, and how can we create a team that is solely focused on providing interventions and providing services for those barriers that families are facing. We know that students, research tells us that students, that we focus on their well-being, we focus on their mental health, we focus on their physical well-being. Not only do we see increased test scores, we see increased engagement. We also see increased graduation rates. So we're really excited again about some of this data that we're already seeing and how that's going to impact our educational mission here at EPIC. So like I mentioned, we are very intentional in forming this team to make sure we had comprehensive supports. We want to make sure that we have a resource, we have a team member, and we have a support that is dedicated to meet the needs at any level that students, families, or teachers might be facing here in our district. And that also students are receiving the appropriate level of care that they need. A student may just need one-time check-in from one of our school counselors, or they might need a referral for therapeutic services. So we have, as you can see here on the screen, a wide range of services that the Student Wellness and Support Services team provides, from counseling and mental health, prevention services, health and wellness, support services, crisis response, and trauma-informed schools. So those are all of the data points that I'm going to go through with you quickly. Oh, okay. There we go. Okay. So we have, first, again, I wanted to talk to you about our key priorities as our team. First and foremost, what is most exciting about this team is that we get to exist as a resource directly to students and families. So whatever the need is, students and families can reach out directly to our team and we can help support that. So we want to make sure that our team knows that that is our number one priority. We are here to serve you all. We are here to serve the Epic school community. Priority 2 is district engagement. How can we help staff and teachers identify some of these needs that they're seeing, refer over to our team, and build in some training and technical assistance? And then our third priority is resource development. How are we making sure that we have all of the resources that we need? So this is what we've been focusing on during our first semester. And you will see here on the next slide when it pops up, just the difference that we have made. So this team was formed actually in the 23-24 school year. At that time, we had 7 team members who were serving those comprehensive needs for almost 30,000 students here. So that team deserves recognition in and of itself, the team who existed originally. So this school year, we were able to grow that team. Thank you to the leadership and the investment from this district leadership team to 29 team members. So now we have, again, those comprehensive supports, 16 in our counseling services, 3 in our mental health and safe and healthy schools team, and 5 in our resilient schools team. We have expanded mental health partnerships, expanded resources and training, and trauma-informed training, which again, I'll go through in just a moment. I have worked in previous roles with dozens of districts, and I first have to say the districts who get it right and the districts who have success and really see those student outcomes are the districts who have leadership support. So I would be remiss if I didn't take this moment to say, without leadership support at the highest level, at every level here at Epic, we would not be able to see some of the outcomes that we're about to go through. I know every decision that was made, especially when forming this team, every conversation I had with leadership was met with intentionality. And at the end of the day, it was what's best for students? What do we need to do that's best for our families here? And I cannot tell you how much I am honored to be a part of that work and to be a part of a team that really focuses on the heart of this district and the heart of what's best for students. So the first data piece that we're going to go through is our mental health, I'm going to talk about our referrals overall. So since we started taking referrals this school year, our team as a whole has worked with 6,139 families. So these are all referrals that coming into us that we have made direct contact with over 6,000 families. And this is from August to December. So the data here ends in December. As you can see, of course, in August, as students are coming in and letting us know their issues or any concerns that they have, parents letting us know any concerns that they have, is when we're seeing our highest numbers. But those numbers have regularly stayed up. So again, direct service, direct contact, we have made with over 6,000 families in just one semester of being a brand new team. So the next area that we're going to go into is our counseling and mental health data. This is led by our Director of Counseling Services, Jenna Jones, and her team. So we've had over 2,600 counseling services referrals come in. So this is to work directly with one of those school counselors that I was talking about. We had 636 mental health referrals come in. And what I love to point out on this slide and what's so important is prior to having these counseling services in-house and on staff here at Epic, every single referral that we had coming in was going out to an external mental health partner. So we know that students weren't receiving at that time maybe the level of appropriate services that they need. Everything was being referred out. And now we have a true number of students who really need those therapeutic services for whatever reason being referred to our mental health partners. So we're able to help students more intentionally and help them throughout this student wellness team. So the next data point that we're going to go through here is a system that we have that is monitoring students, and this is monitored by 2 team members throughout the day of any students who are searching for either suicide, self-harm, or who have already created an active plan to complete suicide. So from this data, just again, August to December, we had 184 students who were actively talking about or searching about a suicide plan that they had. We make direct contact with parents in those situations. That's 184 parents that this team has been on the phone with, that we were able to intervene. We were able to ensure and make sure that that student was safe and provide with resources, whether that be requesting a mental health referral if that family chooses that, or just some follow-up information from them. But these other, about 2,000 that you see here on the screen, these are students who are curious about suicide. They're curious about self-harm. What does this mean? What does this look like? Those are all early interventions. So we were able to catch those students. We were able to talk to those families, talk to those caregivers, and make sure we intervened early before they got to that active planning portion. So again, really, really encouraging numbers. I know this team spends a lot of time on the phone with parents during some of their scariest times. And they have a lot of stories and impact stories to share from that as well. So overall, we had 2,300 counselor meetings. Again, these are in-house counselor meetings. And we have a little over 2,500 students who are enrolled in our wellness course. So they're actually going through skill building, identifying goals, and identifying pathways to meet those goals. And just quickly, some reflections from EPIC that you can see, some impact stories. We recently had a team meeting that we were talking about our overall impact and some stories. And we just, as a team, were sharing some of those things. And there was almost not a dry eye in the place. So I know that we are incredibly fortunate. And this team is just so wonderful. Again, a team full of servants' hearts working with those parents and working with families and students during some of the times that they need the most help here. Next area we're going to quickly move into is talking about student support services. This is led by Marty Dugan and her team. This is where we're able to provide direct support services for families who need the highest level of support, whether that be from one of our 2 food pantries, sending food home, giving access to services. We had 667 families who have reached out, who have needed some of those services provided there. We have also been able to send home 532 backpacks of food for students to make sure we are combating any food insecurity. And those backpacks go home over the weekend, making sure that families and those students do have that source of food over the weekend, that maybe they're not at school receiving, or at any of our in-person sites receiving some of those services. And then we have 1,692 students who are experiencing homelessness here at EPIC. And of course, being a virtual school, we know experiencing any type of homelessness, again, is going to greatly impact the educational outcome for those students. So making sure, again, we're connecting them with services and connecting them with everything that we have here to offer at EPIC. And the last little data piece that I'm going to go through is with our resilient school teams here, led by our Director of Resilient Schools, Heather Graham. So we have started incorporating wellness meetings. These wellness meetings and teams are at the principal level, that we have groups of teams with principals, with counselors and teachers who are getting together to talk about what is needed with our group of students when it comes to wellness. So we have had 47 of those wellness meetings so far. So again, this is where we're supporting the district to make sure we can grow our capacity. I always say we could have a team of 500 and not have enough for the need that we are currently seeing. But the more we can tap into the capacity that already exists with administrators and teachers, the more our impact is going to be able to spread throughout the rest of the district as well. We also are focusing on physical health. So not only are we able to focus on mental and emotional health of students, but we're again able to round that out with physical health services this year. We have a contract with OU that we have been able to provide telehealth services to families now. So we've had a number of families reach out, again, able to have vision, dental screenings, telehealth services, all of these range of physical health services, again, to make sure that our students are here and healthy. And then the last little set of data that I want to share with you is the data on our trauma-informed schools. So this, again, is training on resilient schools, trauma-informed schools, that initial training that goes out to teachers. And over the summer, we were able to train every single managing director of instruction team in person. So over 2,000 educators were trained by our team this summer in those trauma-informed and mental health best practices. Okay, I think that's the end of the data there that I wanted to make sure and hit on the highlights with you all. Any questions from you that I can answer about our team?
Just a couple. First, how is contact made with the students? Is it only when a student or parent reaches out to you? How do you find children in need?
Absolutely. So we have a number of referral sources that is coming from our team. I would say the largest number is coming from teacher referrals. Teacher has spoken with the family, has spoken with the student, and they would like to be contacted by a counselor. So that's one pathway it's coming into us. During enrollment, students and families can also say, yes, I would like for a school counselor to reach out to me. And that directly comes to our team to make contact. And then families can email us. They can also request direct services from counseling as well. We have a large number of parents reaching out. That's growing in our referrals.
Okay. The other question was, you'd mentioned that there were, I believe, a little over 6,000 families that you had been in contact with. Are those individual families, or are they maybe multiple contacts of the same family? How does that work?
So those are individual referrals that have come in. There could be some that have two maybe referrals that are coming from the same student, but over 6,000 referrals have come in from our team.
So about a fifth of our population.
Yes. Yep.
Thank you.
Yes, of course.
This isn't so much of a question as a comment. I'd really like to see that data overlaid with the performance results data to see what we can track there. And maybe something retrospective, on that as well. I don't want to create work, but I think it would be elucidating, for what we're doing here. And
Yeah, I mean, clearly you can see by the data that there's a need. And we're not the only school district in Oklahoma. I mean, every school district in Oklahoma is struggling with mental health and wellness and those things and whatnot. But, I think what Elizabeth was articulating is we have been strategic in making investments over the last 2 years, but especially this past year in beefing up the types of wraparound services that we provide for our students. And so many of those, and I've been here for a long time, over a decade now, so many of those historically have been third-partied out. And so we're now bringing that under the EPIC umbrella. The challenge with third parties is you don't control, the end result, the outcome. Whereas when it's under your roof, you have an opportunity to have a say and an impact and a follow-up. And so we're very proud of Elizabeth and her entire team and the work that they are doing to battle, because it's a battle, the mental health challenges that the next generation are bringing to the table. Everything from COVID to social media to on and on and on and on and on. I could give you a list of things that kids are, this generation are battling with. But just to know that we have qualified, highly talented, certified folks that are working with EPIC students day in and day out gives me the assurance, and I hope it gives you the assurance that we are making good on our 5 aspirations.
We'll say that will be included in our next report. We are working with the data team to be able to really show our own research here at EPIC of linking, again, as I mentioned, those non-academic barriers, having these supports in place and how that is impacting. First, we're going to look at test scores and then look at overall academic scores and engagement.
You said you appreciate the support from Mataba. Couldn't be more supportive of this. I don't, we don't have as much of an education crisis as we have a health crisis, a very serious health crisis. And it's been laid bare by COVID, but the response to that is critical. And I appreciate that this work is pick and axe. And I know it's not easy to intervene in these family matters, but education is dependent. The work that we must do is dependent on this winning this battle. And we have significant, it's been a really hard, I think, transition, even for our age group, to understand what is going on with these kids and the pressures that they're under. And being dismissive of that in any way is cruel. And I appreciate the fact that we are not at any, not at any level. So I can't thank you enough for the work, truly. Thank you.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Okay, thank you.
Okay, Janice. Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's what was.
Good afternoon, board. Here we are 2 months down the road, and we have a financial update and a budget to talk about today. So I will start with the financial update. We're letting them do the slides, so hopefully it goes faster. Great. One more. All right, at the end of November, you have 2 months of financial statements in your packet, but they are cumulative. So that keeps going down the calendar. So we're just talking about the snapshot of November 30th, and all the detail is in your packet for both months. So at the end of November, the fund balance was 5.6 million. So we had revenue of 136.5 million and expenses of just right at 131 million. Go ahead. And this is a new chart that I added into the packet for you guys to review. Some of the comments that conversations that we've had in the finance committee meeting are looking at month to month and projections through the end of the year and things of that nature, especially in light of our adjustments to correct our cash flow, which is also in here. So we had added the cash flow projection at our last board meeting, and now this month we're adding these graphics for you. So this is the revenue versus budget. So the blue is the actual revenue and the orange is the current budget. So not the one that we're going to talk about in a few minutes, but what is in effect as of right now. Go ahead. And this is expense versus budget. So some of the things that we've talked about, those first months being a little bit more expensive than the budget allowed. And then you're going to start seeing some changes in this as the months go forward. Go ahead. And then here's what I'm projecting. So this is revenue. And you can see there's some evening out and some changes that get us to where overall at the end of the year, we're going to be where we need to be. And the most important one is the next one, please. This is the projection for expense versus budget. And you can see the corrections that we've been talking about and that we talked about in the finance committee today, starting December, January, all the way through the end of the year. The blue is lower than the orange. So we're spending less than budget each month. And that's important when you're trying to make up spending more than budget at the beginning of the year, which we've discussed ad nauseum. So this is very, very encouraging. And this projection is based on actual payroll, actual encumbrances, everything I have at my disposal to do the best guesstimating I can do, educated guessing I can do from now to the end of the year. June looks big because of teacher bonuses. That is a completely expected thing for us to have that big surge of expense in June. This is the cash balance projection that we've talked about. The blue is where we're going. The orange is where we were going. So you can see the correction, the writing of that ship has already started. And the blue started changing in November. changed again in December. There's a big change in January, and that's because of the midterm adjustment, which I will discuss more in depth in just a few minutes. But and then, you know, going up to May and then falling a little bit in June because we do have that large expenditure that leaves the bank at the end of the year for teacher bonuses. Next slide. All right, so that's all I have on the financial statements. So I'll pause and ask for questions on those, if there are any. All right, so funding update. It's finally here, the midterm allocation. And ironically, postponing the board meeting by a week gave us more information because the first version of the slides that I had this big TBD. I'll talk about it next month. And then it all came in on Tuesday. So we scrambled together to get the slides updated for today. So this is what we had as of the 10th of January from the State Department. This is in our single sign-on data. And this is where we found out what our midterm adjustment was. We were patiently waiting for it every day of break. And it was published on the 7th and then adjusted slightly on the 8th and adjusted slightly on the 10th. The net adjustment between those three things is about $1,000. So it's just tweaking that the State Department is doing behind the scenes for all schools. So the bottom line for us is we went from an allocation of $199.3 million to $210.7 million. So that's a good increase, and it is more than we anticipated, which is great. And next slide, please. This is the data that I didn't have until Tuesday. So on the far left is the actual state aid calculation sheet that's published by the State Department of Oklahoma, which shows the weighted ADM, the factor rate, all these fun terms we've been talking about for months, waiting to see what they were and showing what our final bottom line allocation is. So we've used that for the budget, which we will be talking about in just a moment. And then on the right is just for curiosity's sake, the adjustments that were made from 7th to the 8th to the 10th to get us from A to B to C. So the left is our current allocation. It probably will change again. There are several things that change through the year. If there's a penalty imposed on a school, the money that's recouped is redivvied on everybody's allocations. You might get pennies, you might get hundreds of dollars. If there's a change in other budgets, there's so many things that could change. What won't change is the weighted ADM. The factor rate can change. It did change. It changed 9 cents on one and 10 cents or 11 cents on another. So constantly monitoring this and making sure. The good news is you're talking about decimal points of change, not millions of dollars in change. So we don't anticipate any major changes from here to the end of the year on the big picture. So you can see it went down 5,452 and it went up 4,400. So this is also in the weeds. Since there were three numbers, I wanted you to have the A to B to C track. Next, please. All right, this is the way the state aid formula works on actual cash in the bank. So the column on the left was our allocation at the beginning of the year and shows the 9% payments we received in the months of August through December. The yellow highlight is our midterm adjustment in January. And what that means is our new allocation of 210, by the time you get to January, we should be at 54% of our new allocation. And then after that, you get 9%, 10%, et cetera. So there's an adjustment in January for all schools. Some go up, some go down to get everybody even and whole to their new allocation. So our January state aid was about $7 million more than December, which is great news when you're trying to rebuild your bottom line and get your cash flow back in line and get that fund balance up. So that gives us some breathing room. And as we continue to build more efficiencies and all of our spending and things like that, that you're going to start seeing at the bottom line on that financial statement that fund balance, the cash balance at the end of each month is going to keep going up until the end of the year, which is exactly what we hoped to happen. So, and then the allocations that will come, the 9%, the 10% in May, just showing you getting us all the way to the end of the year. The gray is they stopped using that number in January. So it's just showing you history and then moving over to the new allocation and then future. So we have received our January state aid. It's already in the bank. It was there on the 15th. So we're breathing a little bit more over on finance. Next slide, please. All right, this is just information that I find interesting. Top 15 schools in the state based on the midterm release of data. This is the ADM, so average daily membership, no weights. And we are still third with 27,311.22 students. You can talk to Michael Flory about the 0.22. That's not my cup. So number 2, Oklahoma City at 32,361 and Tulsa at number 1 at 33,294. And you know, when you think about Epic being at 58,000 in 2021, like, right? So it's just, anyway, and then many of our neighboring schools are there on the list as well. But that's where we've been for a while, and it hasn't changed this year. So this is the first time we've had this data this school year, with the first quarter statistical report for all schools finally being, we can see all of the data within the State Department's website. Next slide, please. All right, this is the weighted version of that same table. It's really a whole lot of numbers, but this is important because the weighted average daily membership is what determines school funding. So it shows that original ADM is that first column after the name. And then your grade weights, a third grader is a different weight than a ninth grader. And there's a bunch of different ones. And then the special education weights, gifted, bilingual, economically disadvantaged. I won't go into the teacher index because it doesn't apply to Epic. And then the final weighted ADM, we're at 49,563.59. So that's the number that's at the top left-hand corner of the state aid calculation sheet, is that number right there. And that's the number that I focus on when I'm looking at actual revenue. So it's same 15 and kind of looking at their weighted ADMs total top to bottom, we're still in third place. Sometimes that's not the case. Sometimes you can be in 5th place on ADM and 4th place on weighted ADM, depending on the characteristics of their schools. But what's interesting to me when I start looking at these numbers is, I'm not going to pick on any particular school district, but when you start comparing 3 schools that have very similar ADMs and looking at their economically disadvantaged numbers, and there's a huge disparity, or looking at their SPED numbers, you know, we look at Tulsa 4250 and we're at 9810 and we're smaller than they are. So our SPED weights are considerably higher than what you have in a Tulsa public school student population. It's fascinating information. We know it because we're living it and educating the students in it every day. But from a board perspective or from a finance person's perspective, those weights equate to funding, which equate to expenses that are necessary to educate the students because they do have more needs than a regular student. The bilingual count is interesting to me too. And our gifted count this year is, we had a large push to try to get our gifted and talented students identified and agreed to participate in the program. And that number went way up. I have a comparison on the next slide, I believe, this year to last year for Epic only. There it is. So these percentages are not percentages of students. This is the percentage of the weighted ADM. So I want to make sure you know when you see 710 gifted, that's not 710 students, it's weights. So if you want to start talking about students, I'm going to let Michael Flory talk about the actual student numbers. But as far as determining our revenue, what I find interesting is the change. So our current year, almost 36% for SPED, and last year was 32.45. That's a pretty big difference. Gifted 2.6, we were 1.06. That's great. That's really great. And then bilingual is almost static, 1.59 to 1.35. And then economically disadvantaged is up 2%. Again, these are the weights that determine our funding, not the number of students that are actually enrolled. It's fractions of students. Some of these things are 0.25. Some of them are 0.34. So one economically disadvantaged student gets a weight of additional 0.34. So it's a combination of all student characteristics. So we went from 45,637 to 49,563, and the ADM increased about 1,200. So 1,200 increase, almost 4,000 increase. The diverse needs of our population, to me, is what you're seeing on display here, our student population. So just fascinating information that we finally can dive into. Next slide, please. Okay, that's it for the updates on state aid for the midterm. Any questions on any of that fun data? Some of you need to wake up, right? It's boring. I think it's fascinating, but.
I'm sorry, but on the portion of students that you look at for the weighted numbers, are you, I'm assuming you are because I trust, but you're actively searching for more gifted students and identifying those students in those separate categories.
Yes, and gifted and talented was one of our main focuses this school year, and you'll see an even bigger increase next year. It's an area that is a little bit more complicated in a virtual environment because in a regular brick and mortar traditional neighborhood school, the teacher's in a classroom with 25 kids and sees something and identifies it, and they test and they qualify and they receive services. There are lots of ways a student can qualify as gifted and talented. And so we've identified those and then started digging in to the data. The federal programs team and the gifted and talented team were combined this last summer and working together on this project. There is a limit for all schools in Oklahoma of what you can claim for gifted and talented, and we're trying to get to the very top of it, like all the schools try to get to the very top. So yes, so identifying is the first part. Then we also have to have parental consent. So you have to actually get the student enrolled as in the gifted and talented part of the services. So we're going to keep identifying. We've identified more since then, since the first quarter statistical report was released, and they hopefully will continue with us. And they're receiving services without being identified. They might be in AP classes, or they're in music, or there's all kinds of things that qualify. So we're going through all of those categories and trying to identify as many students as possible so that we can make sure we're getting the funding, because we're spending the money on the students already. So identifying them and then getting them to participate and getting permission from parent or guardian is kind of the process that they're going through on that. So,
okay, thank you.
Thank you for the question. All right, so the last piece for me is an amendment to the budget in your packet. We are asking that you approve, please go ahead to the next slide, a budget that increases the revenue based on the state aid midterm adjustment and some other small things that have happened in the last month or two. You approved a new budget in October. So this is the second amended budget, and this is just a summary of what's changing from the last budget to this budget. So you had your original budget in May or June that we approved for this year. And then we amended it in October after we finalized last year, and we changed the carryover and some other things. And now we are doing a hopefully last budget of the year, although you never know. And the changes are increase in revenue of almost 8.2 million. We're increasing the expense by just under 11 million. So the net delta on that, the decrease in the ending fund balance is right at 2.8 million. And this is, in a lot of ways in my mind, like we're trying to make sure that anything that we know of or can think of that we might need to do between now and June 30th is accounted for in this budget, so that we don't have to come back and ask for additional budget to spend on something later. So it's always possible that we spend less than this budget, but we can't spend more, not a penny more. So this will give us the headroom we need to get to the end of the year to take care of the teacher bonus and conferences, which we usually do in January, and we'll do right after this meeting if this is approved. So there's a lot that goes into it, but this is the high level macro view of what's changing. And then on the bottom half of the budget where the expenses are listed, there's some tweaking to the percentages on each of the subcategories based on our current encumbrances. So every year we have different focuses on different things. There might be a project for mental health, or there might be a project for a renovation. And when you spend the money in one category, the percentage of that category goes up 0.5% or whatever. And those are constantly fluctuating. So every time we bring a new budget, I try to adjust it as close as I can to where we currently are spending, so that we can get as close as possible to the end of the year. Those categories are informative and they are guiding principles. They are not legal. We can spend more or less in each of those categories. The legal requirement for the budget from the board is the total expenditures. So you're authorizing Bart and his team to spend up to that bottom line expenditure amount. That's what we're asking. So the rest of this is guidance towards that number and what it makes up. So I have the next slide, please. This is the top half of the budget showing the revenue. The blue is what you approved in October, and the yellow is what we've proposed for today. FY24 is in purple, so comparing last year to this year, and then all of the prior years are still there just for the curious that like to watch the patterns through the data. So that's the 308 million. Next slide, please. And the bottom half of the sheet in your packet is the expenditures. So what the ask today is for you to consider and approve a new amended budget of $287,210,398 for the 24-25 school year. And I think that's the last slide. So I'm happy to answer any questions regarding any of the items that were presented.
I don't think we have any questions, Denise. Thank you. Thank you. It looks like I need a motion to approve the financial statements for the period ending October 31, 2024.
We need to do 3D before that. We need to approve the new amended budget.
Oh, okay.
Yes, we need to consider 3D, approve the amended budget.
All right. I'd accept a motion to approve the budget, second amended budget as proposed by Denise.
Second.
Ms. Berry's absent, Ms. Casper,
Yes.
Mr. Hammonds is absent, Ms. Myers, and Mr. Vella.
Yes.
And then I need a motion to approve the financial statements. For the
Yes, to
period
accept
ending-
the financial statements, 3E.
Yes. Period ending October 31st.
Motion. Ms. Berry's absent, Ms. Casper,
Yes.
Mr. Hammonds absent, Ms. Myers,
Yes.
and Mr. Vella.
Yes.
And I'll move that we accept the financial statements for the period ending November 30th, 2024.
Motion. Berry's absent, Ms. Casper,
Yes.
Mr. Hammonds absent, Ms. Myers,
Yes.
and Mr. Vella.
Yes.
And do we have anything that we want to pull out of the consent agenda? Then I'll move that we approve the consent agenda. Second.
Ms. Berry's absent, Ms. Casper,
Yes.
Mr. Hammonds absent, Ms. Myers,
Yes.
and Mr. Vella.
Yes.
And I'm going to let Brandon guide us into executive session.
So if you'd like to go into executive session to discuss the item presented on the agenda, we just need a motion and a vote.
Motion.
Second.
Ms. Berry's absent, Ms. Casper,
Yes.
Mr. Hammonds absent, Ms. Myers,
Yes.
and Mr. Vella.
Yes.
Hey, executive conference room. All right, we'll need a motion and vote to return to open session.
I move we return to open session.
Ms. Berry's absent. Ms. Casper.
Yes.
Oh, sorry. Ms. Berry's absent. Ms. Casper.
Yes.
Mr. Hammond's absent. Ms. Myers.
Yes.
And Mr. Vella.
Yes.
Statement of executive session minutes. Only the board members present were in executive session along with Bart Banfield and Brandon Webb. Only the item listed on the agenda was discussed. No votes were taken. Item 5D, we have no action to take, so we can move to 6A.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
Ms. Berry's absent. Ms. Casper.
Yes.
Mr. Hammond's absent. Ms. Myers.
Yes.
And Mr. Vella.
Yes.
Thank you.